Okay, welcome back to Math 20-1. We're on page 332, and we are going to learn about the quadratic formula, which we did do a little bit of a spoiler last unit, but we're going to get right into it today. So a bit of review for roots of quadratic equations by inspection or decomposition. Okay, so we're going to do an example of both of those. So quadratic equation is an equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, of course, and then equals to 0. So because we're going to be solving it, that means we want x is equal to something, so hence the equal 0. So find the roots of the equation by inspection. So we're looking for something that multiplies to be 18 and adds to be 7. So I would write my brackets. It's going to be x and x. So the two things that multiply to be 18 and add to be 7. So 9 times 2, if I subtract the 2, I get 7, and if I multiply, that gets negative 18. So then there I go, and then remember I set both of these equal to 0, so x is going to be equal to positive 2 and negative 9. So those are the roots of the equation. Okay. For the next example, because I've got an a here, so that means I need what's multiplying to be a and c and adding to be b. So 6 times 12 is 72, and technically negative 72 because of that negative there. And then b is going to be negative 1. So I'm thinking to myself, what multiplies to be those two? So that would be, so 8 and 9 have a difference of 1, and so then in order to make this negative, I would need to make my 9 negative. So then for when I do this for decomp, so then I go 6x squared, and then I put these, because remember these are both going to be my x's, I arrange them so that they can go in here. So let's just put the x up here, and the 8x back there, and it doesn't matter the order, it'll work out, but okay. So then I just look at the first two. So the common factor there is going to be 3x. So then I'm going to be left with 2x minus 3. That's a terrible 3, but it's a 3 nonetheless. And then 8x and 12 have a 4 in common, which makes that 2x minus 3. And remember, the whole point of that is so that these are the same. So then you're going to put your 3x plus 4. I don't know what's with my 3's today. Okay, and then the 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then I solve both of these for equal to 0. So 3x plus 4 equal to 0. 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Move that 4 over. Move that 3 over. And then I'm going to need to divide. Oops, sorry, I'm almost running out of room here. Divide by 3 each side. So x is equal to negative 4/3. And then for this one, I'm going to have to divide by 2. X is equal to positive 3/2. So the roots, therefore, are negative 4/3 and 3/2. Okay, easy peasy. So then let's look at this next one. 2x squared minus 8x plus 5. So using any of these, so let's do the decomposition. So I'm still looking for something that multiplies to be AC, so that's going to be 10, and then adds to be negative 8. Okay, so now I'm looking for something, so factors of 10. So the factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So you can see there's no combination of things that will bring a sum of negative 8. Okay, so at this point right now, we wouldn't be able to do this. So neither inspection or decomp will work. All right. Okay, so we're going to look at what we can do when that's the case. So that is the quadratic formula, and so we're going to use what we learned yesterday about completing the square, and then we're going to apply that on a general formula to get the quadratic formula itself. So this was the equation we were unable to solve with inspection or decomp. another method is required. So we are going to complete the square and show how that can be used to solve it, and then we'll also develop the quadratic formula. Okay, so with this 2x squared, so remember our first step is that we would factor out the 2, so whatever the a is, okay, and we only factor it out of the first two terms, and then remember we put plus something, minus something, close our bracket, put that 5, make it equal to 0. So now this right here, I'm taking 4, I'm dividing it by 2, and then I'm squaring, which is just 4 again. Oops, and I need to put a negative there. Okay, so then this is what I want the first 3. This 4 I want to scoot out. So by kicking it out of the brackets, I have to multiply by 2. So, okay, that's going to become negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 plus 5. Okay, now this right here is my perfect square, and it's going to be x minus 2, and then negative 8 plus 5 is equal to 3. Okay, so now I just have to solve. Okay, so I'm going to scoot that 3 over. So that's going to be plus 3. Then I'm going to divide by the 2. So here we added 3. Here I need to divide by 2. Okay, and then now my next step, because I've got a square here, so just like when kind of the opposite when we were doing radicals, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And remember, when I take the square root, that's going to give me plus or minus 3 over 2, because I could, yeah, when I square it, it could be either one. And then the last thing I need to do is just scoot that 2 over. So take the square root and then add 2. So x is going to be equal to 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so definitely not something that you could easily do by decomp or inspection. Okay, but we did solve it by using by completing the square. Okay. So then if we just take this general formula, okay, we're going to do the same thing, okay, as this. It's just that we've got variables now. So I'm still going to, and it's going to get a little bit messy before it gets better, to be honest. Okay, so I'm still going to follow the same steps. I need to factor out my a. Okay, oopsies, don't know why I changed that. So x squared, and now b divided by a is going to go there, and I still have that x. Okay, and then I'm going to have plus something minus something, and then plus c equals to 0. Okay, move that over. Okay, so remember, I take my b term, b divided by a, I divide it by 2, and I square it. Okay, so now, since I've got a crazy fraction here, so b divided by a, so we'll forget the square for a second here. When you're dividing it by 2, okay, dividing by 2 is the same as timesing by 1/2. Okay, the other way of thinking about it, when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, so then that's going to give me b divided by 2a, and now I'm going to bring that square back. Okay, so then I think this is a little blurry. I'm going to try to, that made it worse, that made it worse. Okay, that's as good as it gets. So then when I square this, I'm going to have b squared, because that's b squared, and then 2a squared is going to be 4a squared, and that's what I'm going to add and subtract to both sides. Okay, so now the next step, I still want to get this guy out, okay, so that I can complete my square, and in order to get him out, I have to multiply by a. Okay, so I'm just gonna write this out, and then we're gonna complete the square after. So then b squared divided by 4a squared times a, that's going to get rid of one of these a's, because there's going to be an a up here, a divided by a squared. Okay, those cancel out, and I'm left with b squared 4a, and I still have that c hanging out with the 0. Okay, so now I'm going to clean this up so that I'm completing my square. Okay, so remember the thing that goes here, and it's all addition, right? The thing that goes there is going to be half of my original term, which is going to be, so b over a, that's that b divided by 2a. That goes right there. Okay? Alright, so now the next goal, oops, forgot my equals 0. The next goal is to solve for that x. So in order to solve for the x, I need to isolate it. So first thing I'm going to do is scoot this guy over. I say scoot a lot. I just like it. Okay, so then that's going to become b squared, so positive b squared for a minus c. Okay, now I've got, what do I need to do? I need a common denominator, right? So then in order to make this a common denominator, since this is 4a, I'm going to put 4a down there, but I have to put a 4a down up here, because 4a divided by 4a is going to be equal to 1. Okay? Alright, so then when that all gets together, that's going to be b squared minus 4ac, so I just rearranged it there, and then that's all going to be over 4a. And am I missing something? Nope, I'm good. Okay, so then this stays the same. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to scoot this down a bit. Okay, so I'm still trying to solve for x, so I'm going to divide both sides by a. Okay, and so the way this is going to work, it's going to put it down here, so that's going to be 4a squared. Okay, I'm going to actually finish, or no, the green I think you can see okay. So then that gets rid of that a, so then I'm left with x plus b 2a squared, b squared minus 4ac divided by 4a squared. Look how fun this is. Okay, so then this squared means I'm going to need to square root both sides to get rid of it. And then of course that's going to turn that into a plus or minus situation. So I'm going to have x plus b over 2a is equal to this whole thing. Anyone complaining about all the writing yet? There. Okay. And our last step that we need to do is we need to completely isolate x, we need to subtract that b over 2a. Okay, so actually I'm going to put this here. So subtract b over 2a plus or minus b squared minus 4ac 4a squared. Okay, now some of you might be thinking, this is so blurry. There, that's better. Okay, 4a squared is a perfect square. So I don't need to complete or like have that full square there if I write 2a. Okay, so then what that allows me to do, there's my common denominator. So I've got negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, so that is using the trinomial in the general formula equal to 0. We completed the square, simplified and solved for x, and we done got that quadratic formula. Okay, so this basically says, so we can use this formula to solve for anything where decomp or inspection doesn't work. Okay, you could do the completing of the square, but now that we've developed this formula, all you have to do is take those A, B, C and plug them into here and solve. Okay? All right, so there we go. So then let's look at, so this is basically what it is. So it has those roots, and it's going to be 2a because, I mean, it's a quadratic, right? So it's either opening up or down. We haven't talked about for not real roots, so if it's up there, so I shouldn't have drawn it up there. I should have gone like that. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2. There is the option if it was right on the vertex, then it would have just one solution. And like I said, if it opened like that, that'd be no solutions. But we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so we are going to find the roots of the following equations using the quadratic formula, and we're going to give answers as exact values in the simplest form and to the nearest tenth. Okay, so all I have to do is identify, okay, well, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, and c is equal to negative 1. I'm just going to go close my blind so people don't. So I want you to go ahead and plug that in. Okay, so that formula, negative b, so that's going to become negative 2. Okay, b squared, so that's going to be 2 squared minus 4ac, and then it's all over 2a. Okay, so then you just have to do the math. So that's going to be 4. 4 times 1 times negative 1 is going to be negative 4, which is going to turn this into a positive 4. So I didn't need to write that long. Divided by 2. And then, moving this down, so I'm going to have negative 2 plus or minus root 8 divided by 2. And then root 8 we can simplify because that's going to be the same as 4 times 2. So I can take that 4 out. 2 root 2 divided by 2. And then I can actually divide both of those by 2, so then I have a simplified version, so my roots are going to be negative 1 plus or minus root 2. So those are my answers. And then it does ask to do that to the nearest tenth, so when you plug that into your calculator, you should get negative 2.4 for the negative value, and then 0.4. Okay? Okay. So this one, it's going to be exactly the same. You just plug them all in. So I would like you to do that one on your own. Somebody can either pause me right now, or if you're listening to this on your devices, just pause and do this right now. This one's a little bit different, so I'm going to do this one with you. But those are the answers that you should get. And 3 plus or minus root 6 over 2, that's the exact. So if a question asks for the exact values, that's the form you want to give. If it says to the nearest tenth or whatever, that's what you want to give. Okay? Okay, so this looks a little bit different. It's not in our typical ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 form. So we just have to make it do that. So we have to first distribute that 3 in. So that's going to give me 12x plus 15, 4x squared. Then I'm going to move everything over. 4x squared minus 12x minus 15 is going to be equal to 0. Now I've got my a, b, and c. Okay, and so then I just start off with my quadratic formula of x is equal to negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. You do get this formula on your formula sheet. However, you might find you just memorize it because we're going to do some practice problems. Okay, and then you substitute in. So notice because it's negative b here and a negative b value, so that's going to turn into 12. Okay, and then b squared, well, negative 12 squared is 144. Okay, 4 times a, So 4 times, we'll do this one out, just so that I don't lose anyone. Okay, oh, computer fell asleep, lost the computer. Okay, so, and then just double check, so that's AC, so then see how I need to have a negative there on my C. And that's all over 2 times A, which is going to be 4. I could have just written 8, but that's okay. I'm just afraid I'm going to run out of room here. 144. So 4 times negative 15, okay, and then subtracted from 144, or actually 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 15, 240. Okay, and then that negative and that negative are going to make this a plus, and then that's going to be over 8. And then once you plug this all into your, calculator and then simplify, actually, let's just 384 divided by 8. I'll squish it in. Okay. 384 can be rewritten as 8 root 6 over 8. And then 12 and 8, those have 4s in common. So we're going to, so I'll go over here. So that's going to be 3 plus or minus 2 root 6 divided by 2. There we go. And then the 2, like if you were to actually plug that into your calculator to get the nearest to the 10th, you'd get those 2 values. Okay? All right. So, class example 3, is it our last one? Sure is. So find the zeros of the quadratic function, give the answers as an exact value, and to the nearest hundredth. So there isn't anything different here, I don't think. We're just doing more of the same. So my A is negative 3, my B is positive 4, and my C is positive 1. So then I just have to quickly write down my formula to make sure I don't do a silly error. Then I'm going to substitute in, so negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared minus, oopsies, okay, and then that's all going to be over 2 negative 3. Okay, so this one is a little bit different because our A value is negative, but we'll see nothing crazy. Okay, so then I'm going to simplify my radicand. So 16 plus 12, right, is going to be 28. And then 2 times negative 3 is negative 16. And then that 28, that's going to be the same as 4 times 7. So I'm going to bring that out. So I'm going to have negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 7 over 6, negative 6. So now notice I've got 3 even numbers. So I can take out a 2, so that's going to become, and I can take out a negative 2. Yep. I'm going to take out a negative 2, and that's going to make this 2. And then so technically, it's going to, well, it's not going to do anything to this. It's still going to be plus or minus. All right. And there it is. So if those 2 are negative, you make them positive. And then plug those into your calculator, and you should get, and make sure that you do plug them into your calculator, because of course we all need practice with that. And there's the answers. Okay, so just go ahead and make sure that you get this one, the 2B, and then you can get started on those assignment questions. All right, you guys have a good day. Oh, I'll probably see you in a little bit.